Some years ago, a very interesting thing happened. We kept getting a phone call from Haiti, down in the Caribbean, that country that had a terrible earthquake, very poor. This is some years ago. And the people, there was a doctor down there who kept begging us to come to Haiti. And it was in turmoil at the time because, they just had this terrible president and there was awful things going on. So we always said, it's really too dangerous, and we weren't sure because it wasn't at the invitation of the bishop or priest, but this doctor, lady doctor, kept writing to Father Kevin and calling him and saying, you have to come to Haiti. You have to come and talk to the people here. Say what you've said before to both of us. So then one day we got a ticket. They sent us 2 tickets. They didn't take no for an answer, and we still weren't too excited about going, but eventually we did arrange to go, and we thought, why would the poor people need us? And when we arrived at the airport, the doctor was there with her family, other members of the medical profession that were in her family. And she said to Father Kevin, Father, I didn't want to tell you or Sister Briege. I wanted you to be here to see and to share with you what happened. This doctor was diagnosed with very bad cancer. And she was flown to New York to St. Clare's Hospital, I think St. Clare's in New York. She had lot of suffering. She had a colostomy, and she was in terrible pain. But she heard that Father Kevin and myself were going to be in the Archdiocese of New Orleans for a big conference, and that there was going to be a Mass and a Eucharistic healing service. She pleaded with her husband that they would fly her down to New Orleans to this conference. Well, there was 7,000 at the conference, and she didn't get near Sister Briege. It was a huge gathering. But she said, Father, I have to tell you what happened. I listened to the Mass, I listened to Sister Briege saying, that when Jesus comes, he sees you. Look at him. Remember that your faith has a wonderful capacity to help you. If you just look at Jesus, say, Jesus, please help me. And I was telling them how to pray and, to really ask. And I said, don't worry, it's not impossible. There's no sickness that Jesus can't heal, and he's alive. You're not asking for something that's out of the ordinary. It's really not. Cardinal students used to say, and I heard many say in the renewal, healing is part of everyday life because Jesus is still alive. But we're the people who have forgotten. So she said, I was on a stretcher because they took her down by air ambulance. She was in this big auditorium, and she was very disappointed she wasn't going to see Sister Briege. But when Father walked down the aisle, she put her head up as far as she could, and she looked at the host. And for the first time, she said ever, and I'm a medical doctor, and I am a Catholic, but I was kind of a lukewarm Catholic. She said, I listened to what Sister said, and I just looked at the host, and I said, Jesus, I want to believe what Sister's saying. I'm desperate. Please either heal me or do something. She was miserable, and the journey was very difficult. She said she left because she had to get back that evening. 2 days later, she got critically ill and thought she was going to die. And she went into a deep, kind of a sleep almost. And she looked at Father and she said, I want to show you something. She said, the following day, I felt something happen. And she said, little did I know the miracle that was going to take place. Because she had a colostomy. It had fallen off, the wound was gone, she felt perfect. And she kept thinking, you know, she kept thinking, can it be possible? Even the scar is gone. So the nurse came in, the night nurse, was early the next morning, and they ran out and got the doctor. And she said, you've never seen such a group of confused doctors, because one doctor said, but I know you have a tube inside you. I did the surgery. I'll have to operate on you to get it out. And she pleaded with them, please don't operate yet, x-ray me. And that's why she wanted Father Kevin and myself to see the x-ray. There was no tube, no cancer, and new kidneys. And she said, Father, I came back here, and can you imagine the people she was a very charitable doctor and did a lot of help with the poor. And we did preach and minister, and I will never forget in that country, there's a lot of, black magic, a lot of things go on in Haiti. Father Kevin walked through a kind of a park, and we saw miracles. We saw demons leave. It was exactly like when Jesus walked, when the demons would scream, we know who you are. See, Pope Francis keeps telling us, the enemy is trying to take away from us. Satan is very active, and he uses very subtle ways to destroy our Catholic faith. And just what Father said, he's doing everything to take your faith away, and the place you meet the real living Jesus is in the Catholic Church. Other Christians are wonderful people. God bless them. But you and I, to those who are given much, much will be expected. Because you and me, through our baptism, through the sacraments, God for 2,000 plus years has been faithful to us. I share another beautiful experience we had. Two more, and then I'm just going to continue with this Mass. We were in Australia, and there was a healing service in Sydney. And the day afterwards, this little boy, I think we were there for a few days, this little boy came up all excited to tell us, he was 9, his little brother had lost his hearing and was really in a bad way, couldn't speak. And his little 9-year-old brother came to the healing service, and he heard me speaking and Father. And he told us himself that when Jesus came where he was, he begged Jesus, not for himself, but he said, Jesus, he pleaded with Jesus. And children are like sponge, they believe what you tell them. And he came back the next day to tell us, when he went home, his brother, little 5-year-old brother, could hear. He was completely healed. Not through him being there, but through the prayers of his little brother. And that's the power of faith. That's what Jesus can do. And the last thing I would tell you, I had a very beautiful experience in Belfast. And I'm sure my 2 friends here, I think they were with me. I was giving a talk at a Divine Mercy conference, at a Divine Mercy evening on the Falls Road. And as I was sitting, it was a Sunday evening, in the front of the church, a little boy came up, put his hand inside my veil, scared me. I was waiting for Mass to start. And I always remember this big horn-rimmed glass, and he looks at me and he says, my granny said to ask you, would you tell Jesus to heal me? Would you pray for me? So I said, what's your name? He told me his name. I said, have you made your first communion? He said, no. I said, well, let me tell you something. I'll pray for you, but Jesus is coming. And he said, now, even though you're not able to come and receive Jesus in communion, Jesus will walk around the church. And when you see Jesus coming in that big host, I said, you talk to Jesus and tell Jesus. I had no idea what was wrong with him. His grandmother brought him. Well, Mass started. And when the healing service started, all of a sudden, down the middle of the aisle, there was a lot of, you could hear people saying, this little boy got out in the middle of the church, put his hand up, and said to the priest, stop. Then he looked up at Jesus, and he said to Jesus on the top of his voice, my granny and Sister Briege said to ask you, Jesus, would you heal me? I'm very sick. And he stood there looking with the faith of a little child. And everybody, including the priest, everybody was so surprised. Well, I never did meet this little boy that day. Afterwards, we were all very surprised, and it was a wonderful teaching of living faith of a child. It was always nice to know what happened and what was wrong. It was 2 weeks later, I was in All Hallows at the intercession, and the grandmother wrote to me. But she told me that this little fella, when he was 2, he had a kidney removed with cancer. Now he was 6, and the second kidney was cancerous. And they were in a desperate state because it was pretty critical. And she said that she brought him over to the parish there where I was, and she said the following Tuesday he went into the Royal to get to see what they could do for him. If there was anything, they were desperate because it was really bad. And to the great surprise of the grandmother and the parents, the little boy had a new kidney, no cancer. Now, many years later, I went back to give a mission with Father Kevin in one of the parishes on the Falls Road. And the priest there said to me, there's a couple with their child, their little boy here, he's about 9, and he wants to meet you. And I go into the parlour, and here's the parents, and this beautiful young boy, big head of curls, and he looks at me, and I said to him, well, what do you think of Jesus? He told me about his healing. He said, Jesus is brilliant. And then he looked at me and he says, and you're brilliant too for telling me about him. That child was healed. That's the power of prayer. That's what our faith can bring us. And let me say this to you. Not everybody gets healed the way they want, but you will get help. Not everybody gets out of wheelchairs. We all get sick. I've had my own sickness. I was miraculously healed. Then I had to have brain surgery because of something that was bothering me in my face. The Lord revealed to me to go see a neurologist, and the neurologist fixed me with plenty of prayer. 2 years ago, I had a terrible virus that caused me meningitis. And I suffered a lot with it. But I'll tell you, if it wasn't for the anointing of the sick and the prayers and the Eucharist, suffering is not easy. But I'm telling you tonight, those of you who are here suffering and who are taking treatment, or for your beautiful little children, don't think because something doesn't happen right now, it's not going to happen. What I would encourage you to do is to keep pleading. Never be afraid to ask for a miracle. You know, I used to go into the chapel and cry because I was in terrible pain with the virus that affected my body so much. And I used to say to Jesus, I know, Jesus, I have to accept your will, but please help me. And I know it's not easy suffering, but faith gives you supernatural strength. And you will get help tonight.